There we go. That's that. Let's try this. I've forgotten. You hearing the music okay? Nice. We're back live in the main studio once again. Back live, Bill Gallagher, scalingcoach.com, Scaling Up Business Podcast. Happy to be back in my home studio. So today's show is all about turning setbacks into growth opportunities that can apply to you and your business and the people you work with and so much. Hey everybody, I'm Bill Gallagher, scaling coach and host of our show on Scaling Up every week. A couple shows to you every week, nearly 500 now. We need to find that. One day we need to look that up and figure out what that date is and celebrate our 500th episode. It's right about now. And we've got all kinds of things and more for you at scalingcoach.com. You'll find our programs there. In particular, our Growth Navigator program is an innovation that combines the best that we've done in the world of helping companies, coaching companies to scale up over the years. And there's a spot for you there in that program. If you're got at least 10 employees and you want to get to hundreds, if you've got at least $1 million in sales and you want to get to mini millions, we've got the best of scaling up, the Gallup growth tools, and more at scalingcoach.com. Look for our Growth Navigator program. And we've got cohorts starting every month now that you could join and help you scale up. All right, enough of that infomercial. I'm joined by Doug Lennick. So Doug is CEO, co-founder of a company called Think to Perform. And his company helps people with growth and scaling and with a particular focus on that. But they've written a book on this about not waiting for someone else to fix it. Don't wait for somebody else to fix it. How fixing and dealing with your own setbacks can make a real difference. So welcome to the show, Doug.
Thank you, Bill. It's great to be here. And it's a great topic, actually. Obviously, we've all had setbacks, and or if we haven't, then we haven't tried much yet.
Yeah. Let's frame that topic a little bit more, right? Like a setback is anything. It's when life throws you a curveball, right? Like,
oh yeah.
There you are, and suddenly you or someone you care about has a diagnosis of a health condition. There you are, and there's a storm, and your business or factory is underwater or impacted by that. There you are, and a key customer is impacted, and your business is threatened, right? There's a crime, there's a whatever, or world events, right? Ukraine was invaded brutally and rapidly. Israel was attacked viciously just this last week. These things throw us, right? And can throw us off our game, but how we respond makes all the difference.
That's absolutely the truth. And what you just basically said is you captured the essence of it all, which is...
All right, well, let's wrap then. We're done.
Yeah, we can wrap it up and just say he got it. I mean, because it's the notion of what happens in life. Let's call them obstacles. Obstacles happen. Life happens, and it comes fully equipped with surprises and things we didn't expect. And a lot of people find that obstacles are in the way, and the person that actually makes it to where they'd like to go, they don't view obstacles quite so much as in the way as they do on the way. So, and I look at my own career and
tell your long story, because the concept of our show, our topic today is really, really simple, right? At its core. But it's complicated and nuanced, and I think your life story and the story of some of the people you work with is useful. So let's start with you. Tell us about your career. You're starting to tell as we were.
Well, right now, for example, I'm sitting in downtown Minneapolis at the corner of 7th Street and Marquette Avenue, right downtown Minneapolis, the heart of downtown Minneapolis. I'm on the Skyway level in what we affectionately refer to as world headquarters. 2 blocks down the street on 7th Street, across the street on the Skyway level is a new building. But 50 years ago, I had a business there that was called Minneapolis Circulation. At that same time, I was starting my career as an IDS financial advisor on the 44th floor of the tallest building in the state, which is right next door. And I looked down, and interestingly enough, just that business, when you talked about setbacks and you said you could even tell your own, I hadn't even thought about it. It was both a wonderful thing and a setback all at the same time. And it was an interesting thing with that business. So Minneapolis Circulation, I was an entrepreneurial hippie. Keep in mind, I'm 71 years old. So, and so that's a while ago. So I'm 21 years old. And I wore my hair long. I used to have hair. Now I don't. And my grandson points that out. Grandpa, you don't have any hair. And I know. But anyway, this business, we owned the circulation rights to what became Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine. And we did that because I had spent time working on the telephone, selling books for Time Life books. And I rose my way up while I'm going to college, trying to be an accountant. I didn't fail, I dropped out of the accounting school. The business that I started collapsed because I wasn't prepared for the truth. And the truth was there's going to be some uncertainty. I remember how excited I was every day, 21-year-old guy doing a little dance at the post office, because the post office, the box was stuffed with envelopes, with checks. And I'm thinking, I've made it. Well, I made it, and I blasted, and I lost it. And we made it again and again. And those things happen. So you have setbacks. And
that's a really useful thing. Think about it. Like I'm just a little bit younger than you at 59, but and I'm starting to lose my hair, I'm sure. 10 years later.
Well, here, Bill, I'll give you explain it this way. Just say you're getting taller, that you're growing through your hair. Your hair's still in there. Yeah.
Hopefully I get more wise as I lose the hair. But you get a new client, you get a new opportunity, you launch a new program, people show up, and you're like, yeah, this is going to last forever. This is going to be great, right? But then things change, and things change faster and faster than ever before, right? You're cruising along, you're happy as can be, and then boom, something happens.
Right. And it happens from anywhere. And business people get to understand, the concept. Birds don't eat birds, cats eat birds. We think that our competition are the other birds. They're not. The competition's the cat. You don't know who the cat is. And that's what's so fun about business today. You don't know where it's all coming from. And the winners are the people who know how to handle whatever happens. So the premium isn't on knowing what will happen, because no one does. The premium is learning how to deal with it, and then not waiting for somebody else. Hence the title of the book. Don't wait for somebody else.
What happened to the publishing company? What was
the publishing company?
How'd you navigate that?
Well, in that particular deal, what happened is we had arranged the financials really well. I mean, I must say that I was in business with 2 partners, and the 3 of us together, all young guys, did a really masterful job of putting together what was a really good business proposition. But the publisher decided to try to work around us. Once he figured out what we were doing and why it was working for us and for him, he tried to cut us out. And when he cut us out,
so good for people to think about, right? There are these moments and you're like, oh, we're doing 20% or better net profit. Like, okay, somebody's going to figure it out and start to compete with you soon. And
Well,
the good
and it was a publisher. See, like we literally owned the circulation rights. So when somebody wrote out paid it their subscription, they paid for, they wrote the check out to my company, our company.
Yeah.
And then we gave a little bit of that to the publisher. But what we really gave the publisher was a paid subscriber so that he could make money on advertising. So I understood, I wasn't that dumb. I got it.
Right.
I had worked for Time Life Books. I get it. You make money on advertising. And advertisers like to know that subscribers are paying. So he tried to cut us out. He successfully starved us out by the way he cut us out, and we were not ready for that.
Yeah.
But we reincarnated that business in the form of a company called Twin City Telemarketing. And so we built beyond that. We went to other magazines, and guess what? We made those work. So it's a long and interesting story. All the while, I'm building my financial advisory career that later resulted in me being, and Chuck, that's where Chuck and I, my co-author, we ultimately met. We were both executives at American Express Financial Advisors. I started when it was IDS, right across the street, the IDS Center. So here I am 50 years later, 2 blocks down the street. Nothing's changed and everything's changed. And the thing that hasn't changed is emotions still happen. I still have to deal with them. And those who learn how to do that win.
Yeah. Let's tell some other stories then. So you went through some phases of that growth. You went from selling your own subscription, working with a publisher, to running a telemarketing operation, selling for other magazines, and you moved into financial advisory and then IDS that became the American Express Financial, right?
Yeah.
I got that arc of that.
And it's now Ameriprise. It's now Ameriprise is the name of the company today, Ameriprise Financial or Ameriprise.
One of the people that you worked with and wrote about is Trish Mole. Trish Mole. Tell us about Trish.
Trish is, interestingly, she's an extraordinary leader. And one of the things that I can start with is Trish is one of those people that starts with the right intent. Some people get into leadership roles because they didn't like the role they were in. They thought, maybe I'll become the boss and maybe I'll get better. She actually wanted to lead because she wanted to help people be the best they could be. And so she's that kind of person. And I think in her career, she was experiencing opportunity. She was doing really well. She was a finalist for career advancement a couple of different times, got very close, got passed by, but hung in there. And executives in the firm, executives that I don't work there anymore, haven't for 21 years. Well, I did sort of, kind of half time, sort of, kind of, but they kept calling her. They reached out. They reinforced her. She has continued to get promoted. I think she's been promoted since we wrote the book again. And so she's done a phenomenal job. So I was really, it's interesting that you picked that story. But Trish Mole didn't wait for somebody else to fix the fact that she had it within her to help the people that she served as their leader, help them get better. And so what leaders do.
What was she doing before, and what was her setback? I'm not sure I followed that.
It was less a setback than it was. The setback was not getting the job. It was kind of, many of us have had that. she was so well prepared and just missed getting opportunities a couple of times. So dealing with that and staying the course and still believing I'm going to keep doing the right thing anyway. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to moan. I'm not going to groan. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to keep playing the game the way it needs to be played, the right way to play it, because it's the right thing. Interestingly, Bill, we just did this. I just released it literally last week. We talked at our Evolve conference, Think to Perform. For the last year, we redid our online values exercise. People can go there for free. They can do the values exercise. So we captured from 146 nations from around the world. There are 195 countries in the world. We captured the values. And of roughly 90,000 people have completed the exercise. And the top values in the world, we just are releasing. This is the first broadcast I'm having a chance to share this, but we're releasing this information right now. And here's what I will say. And this relates directly to Trish Mall and why she is so successful and the impact that she has, even though she didn't get everything that she wanted when she wanted it, she stayed doing things the right way. So here's what we came to realize: the values of the world.
Mm.
Turns out the values all over the world fall into about 4 buckets. People value people, bucket 1. People value making a difference, bucket 2. People value making a difference, doing it the right way, bucket 3. People value being rewarded for making a difference, doing it the right way. Now, what's interesting is the reward which they value and they get is the right way, with integrity, honestly, making a difference, helping others, making that impact. Those are the things people literally pick those words. They want, and they get rewarded with happiness. The third highest value in the world is happiness. Number 1 in the world is family. Number 2 in the world is health. The reward for people who do it the right way is they are healthier, they are happier. Now, by the way, money and wealth make the top 20, but they're in the bottom quartile of the top 20. And what's interesting is the nations outside the United States that have been most useful using the tool. A couple surprised me, like Indonesia and India, of top 5 outside of the US. India, Indonesia, not surprisingly, the United Kingdom, Australia, and Canada. And then, of course, the US. But everybody all over the world, what words do they pick? Family, number 1. Health, number 2. Happiness, number 3. All over the world. And some people are listening to this. No, not there, not there. Oh no, it turns out people all over. And that's what I find so fascinating. And what Chuck and I are saying, and don't wait for someone else to fix it, is we all can see the problems that exist in the world. And people are pointing fingers. They got one that points to the problem. I see that. And then one, and I blame that. I blame you for that problem. And I want you to fix it. And what we're saying is, hey, if we see something, let's fix it. I work, my community that I live in, pay residential taxes in is Edina. But I work and live in Minneapolis. I was at a Minneapolis park the other day, and I was just picking up stuff and throwing it away. And somebody said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "There's this trash here." And they said, "Why are you picking it up?" And I said, "Because it doesn't look good. It's trash." And they said, "Well, there's a park worker that'll do that." I said, "I get it, but they're not here. I am." And I'm going to throw it away. I'm sorry if that bothers you, but a lot of people won't even stop to help somebody because it's not their job. Well, come
See, I
on.
think when I hear that, I think what's uncomfortable for them
Yes.
is watching you do it and feeling like, why am I not doing it? And it'd be better if you stopped so that we could get in an agreement that the reality is, or the norm is, that we just let things be for somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. We do. So I think the opportunity that we have is enormous, but the truth is there will be obstacles. And Trish Mall dealt with setback career advancements that didn't come her way in the manner in which she expected them to, giving up a very lucrative business, taking in essence a reduction in compensation, betting on her long-term leadership career. So she made a long-term bet on herself, uh, overcame some setbacks because I made the bet and then it didn't work. And it's like, did I do the wrong thing?
So
No.
what did she actually do to deal with that? What were the measures, the moves that she did after not getting promoted? Why didn't she
What
get
she did
promoted?
is
What did she do about
she got focused on her own values. So one of the things that she did is there's a tool that she uses and that we teach a lot of people. It's called the 4 R's. First of all, you kind of recognize. The first R is recognize what's going on. So she recognized what was going on. And that recognition includes recognizing what's going on with me, Trish Mall. How am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I doing? Recognize that. Recognize what's stimulating me to feel like that. Recognize what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And she did that.
Mm-hmm.
So she understood the conflicting emotions that she had. Then she went to the second R, which is to reflect. She reflected on her own values. And here's what happens. All of your listeners, all of your viewers, anybody who takes the time to reflect on their most deeply held values before making a decision of any kind, a significant decision, will make a better decision. She reflected on her values. She reflected on the big picture, her whole story. Zooming in, that little picture didn't look good, but the big picture still did. So she could reflect on that. She could see the big picture, and the calls that she got from people reinforced that. So she thought, okay, maybe I didn't make the wrong decision betting on myself. So then she could move to reframing, which is she just decided to change what she was thinking. All of the negative thoughts that I'm sure she spent a moment with, she decided weren't doing that much for her. And she just decided to reframe. And framing is how I think about something. And a lot of times the reasons things aren't working for me is because the way I frame things. I frame them in a way that I sabotage myself. Well, if I could reframe, I could turn that into my advantage, which she did. And then the fourth frame is respond. She responded by continuing to be a strong performer and, oddly enough, getting better. She
Mm-hmm.
got better.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't go in the corner, whimper, and again, I'm sorry, Trish, if you see this, but I know Trish, and she handled herself professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And one says, well, yeah, but professionally meant she aligned her behavior with her values. And Trish Mall, ideally, is a wonderful person, just like Bill Gallagher is, just like Doug Lennick is. That's why the first essential is aim to be your ideal self. If you're your ideal self, Bill, the world's going to be a better place. And you and I are just getting to know each other. But I'm pretty sure that's true already.
You share some other examples. We're going to talk about those in just a second. Before we do, I just want to remind our listeners that we have this new Growth Navigator program. And I want to tell you a little bit about that program before we move on to some of the other examples from the book. So Growth Navigator is a weekly coaching program in the tools of scaling up, plus some other things from Gallup and from other organizations that help companies grow and scale. We deal with your people, your strategy, the execution, the operations, and your cash, your business model, and your production of cash. We do it every week. So there's a little something every Wednesday that you do, some coaching class, some exercise for you and your leadership team. And then we lead you through quarterly planning, annual strategy sessions. It's mostly done online, but there's a couple of in-person things every year in January and July. We've got a big in-person. So we mix online, offline, in-person, online, and we give you something every week. If your company is ready to grow, you might check out the Growth Navigator program at scalingcoach.com. So you can also send us an email, info@scalingcoach.com, or just go to the website and then click on the Growth Navigator. So that's Growth Navigator from Scaling Coach. You talk about some famous examples, and one that stood out for me, I think is really useful because a lot of our audience, some of our older members of the audience were born in the 70s. But many were in the 80s and 90s, and they don't really know or remember Jimmy Carter. But Jimmy Carter, one of our former presidents, suffered a setback. And so tell us that story about Jimmy Carter that you talk about, because most folks didn't grow up knowing him.
Well, Jimmy Carter actually, I'm trying to remember the story we tell in this one on Jimmy. There's several stories at the time, because as I was growing up, keep in mind, Jimmy Carter became president in the late 70s. So for our viewers and listeners, there's this chain. So you have the infamous Richard Nixon, who leaves office in shambles. Let's say Gerald Ford replaces Nixon, and ultimately Gerald Ford loses his reelection bid to Jimmy Carter, and we have double-digit inflation and all of those kinds of things. And Jimmy, professionally, politically, had the major setback associated, and I'm not sure if this is the one we tell, but he had a setback in his political career, given some of the activities that happened during his presidency, and he was much maligned. And subsequent to that, he made the decision, and he and his wife Rosalind continued to make decisions aligned with their values. He always was well intended. Some of the mishaps that took place under his administration, he took responsibility for, but he didn't shrivel up and die either. He was told to shrivel up and die by a lot of people, and ultimately then came Ronald Reagan, and on we go, and so forth. But the recovery to in my mind, the biggest recovery that Jimmy Carter made was after his presidency. He recovered in that he became world famous for truly being a person of conviction, recognizing that there is a growing global population and the world needs to work for all of them. And people
So
began to buy that.
to add a little more picture there to fill in for the listeners. Jimmy Carter comes to the presidency following the heels of Nixon's collapse and failure in disgrace from office, taken over by Gerald Ford, and Jimmy Carter campaigns on I would say, in retrospect, a theme of decency. Like, I'm going to be a good guy. You can trust me, like that kind of thing. He comes into office and the economy takes a nosedive. We've got inflation, stagflation. Things aren't great. We did get disco.
Yeah, we got the Bee Gees. Yeah,
and we got a lot of good things, but there we are in the 70s. And then we have the Iran hostage crisis. So Iran falls in a revolution to the Ayatollah Khomeini, and they take hostages from the American embassy. And the nation is gripped in a feeling of failure and powerlessness. And Ronald Reagan comes in and says, look, we could be tough. We could be strong. And he projects a gentlemanly but strong kind of thing. There's maybe some back channel stuff around solving that. And Jimmy Carter's he loses badly to Ronald Reagan, who promises to make America awesome and to restore us to what made us beautiful and noble. And he came in, and not only did the hostages get released pretty quickly. Oh, and as Carter's campaign failed, there was also a failed rescue attempt, a very complex hostage rescue operation. So, brutal setback the guy goes through, and just doesn't seem to get it right. Seems to be coming at it with all the best intentions, and yet he's not effective. And yet now, today, his post-presidency career is regarded as one of the most exemplary in history. He spent time being of service, being a phenomenal human being, right? Turning that around. And you say he went back to his values. I think he probably never escaped his values.
He never escaped them. Yeah. But I
never strayed.
Yeah. If I said it that way, I withdraw that. He never left his,
he returned.
And I was a person of reasonable age in my own professional career.
Yeah.
And growing myself as my own family. I mean, I saw all of this, and ultimately, because of my role at American Express, Gerald Ford was on our board of directors. So I met Gerald Ford, and Henry Kissinger was on the board. I'll never forget. I was at a board meeting. I was trying to buy a company, and Gerald Ford was there. Kissinger falls asleep in the meeting, and
it's remarkable how human world leaders can be, right? Their basic human failings.
And Jordan was being called out to face the press, because of the Monica Lewinsky thing. This is all happening, and it's kind of like, wow,
Wow.
but these are good people.
Gerald Ford was probably a little bit more decent leader than, but he was unfortunately still associated with Nixon.
And he pardoned Nixon.
And he pardoned Nixon, which, maybe seemed right for him in terms of healing, but didn't help in terms of feeling like there needed to be some consequences for a betrayal of trust. And of course, we've taken all the new lows these days. We won't get into that.
Yeah, and the thing, Bill, that remains always the same is the most effective leaders in our communities live in alignment with their closely held values. The most effective leaders live in alignment with what matters to them most. And
it's a really great call. If you think about the failure of leaders, right? Like the ones that get into trouble, it's when they're saying something on the outside and then living entirely differently. They're not staying consistent with it. They're compromising on it. They're justifying. and then
Yeah.
pretending to be something that they're not, right? And no room
Correct.
for their humanity.
Correct. So here's what we suggest. It's very straightforward, and really, truly, if people get in touch with their ideal selves, aim to be your ideal self. Go to our website. It's free. It's thinktoperform.com.
We'll throw it up there. Thinktoperform.com
Yeah,
is
you
where
go there. You go, and
thing.
within 15 minutes, you can go through this electronic card game, and you'll sort out your values, whatever they are.
That's so fun. Thinktoperform.com. Doug Lennick, our guest. Thank you, Doug, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Big thanks to Wanda Mitchell for getting our show ready and helping us not to miss a beat every week. To my friend and mentor, Vern Harnish, author and creator of Scaling Up and the Rockefeller Habits That Came Before It. To the folks at Podfly Production who get our show out every week. Thanks again to our listeners, our viewers. Thanks for watching, for being with us. We'll talk to you again next time. Until then, keep scaling.